helping them understand where the value is. That's our job as salespeople, is to build enough value with them about the things that we're offering to help them come to terms with separating from their money. Welcome back to another episode of Just Real Quick. Today in the studio, I got Mr. Jared Everett, Blake Norton, and we got on the Zoom call, Mr. Andres.
What up?
He's out on the road this time. What's up, brother? And today, I'm going to let Jared do an intro on the stuff that we're going to be talking about. How do you get the money? What do you say, Jared?
You got to find it, man. So yeah, today we're going to talk about how do you get the money? So what we mean by that, when you get into a home and everything goes great, you do your presentation and it's time to close the deal. There's about 1.5 million ways you can get a deal closed in terms of getting money, and different scenarios as well. You know, they could have the money in their bank account. They could want to finance it. They could put it on a credit card. There's, again, 1 million ways to do it. So what this podcast is to get some of our A players on, people that have a lot of experience with closing tons of deals, so we can kind of unpack what that looks like to find the money.
Sometimes you got to get a little bit creative. It's not just about asking for it, because some people just miss the mark on just asking for it.
Yep.
But once you get past that stage, then sometimes you got to get creative, because we know the people wouldn't be sitting down with us if they didn't have money. Now we just got to find it.
Yep. And I've had people joke with me because I've closed deals all sorts of ways. They're like, what are you, like, looking in between their mattresses? I'm like, yeah, under rocks and in between their mattresses, under the pillow, whatever it takes. You got to get that. So,
and you know what? There could not be a better person in the company or in the entire sales industry to talk about this than this man down here at the end of the table. Because if there's anybody that can get extremely creative in helping people find money and help them just think about places where they have money, but they just aren't thinking about those areas, Mr. Blake Norton.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very gracious. I don't think that's adequate, but I'll take it. I'll put that up on the
I've heard the stories, dude. And there is nobody that I've ever heard of that can get creative like you can, that knows finances well enough to talk about the things like you do.
Well, here's the truth. I know finances well enough to pretend like I know. That's about it. Like there's an iceberg. I'm not even below the surface of the water when it comes to the financial iceberg. Like, I'm just on the iceberg. Like, if you go underwater and you look at how much knowledge there is about the financial industry, that's like, it's a huge tool for a salesman if you're trying to enable someone to get the money or to
100%
to get the tool. Because a lot of people don't have money, right?
But you know what's cool about that is, as much as there is down there to learn and continue to learn and absorb about finances and the markets and the mortgages and interest rates, as much as you know intrigues people, because most of us don't know as much as you know. So it sounds really convincing.
That's a good point. And you could know everything in the world too. It's the delivery of that information. It's talking about it in a confident manner. We were talking about this earlier. Asking the questions is a huge part of getting the money. But a lot of people I've found, they just don't know. There's a lot of financial illiteracy, like in the country, right? In our demographic that we're trying to go, we go into a small town and we're looking to improve their home. We're looking to add value and equity to their home. And a lot of people don't even know like how that really works. How does equity on your home work? You know, how does these things really work? Or they have this this kind of old school mentality towards a credit card, towards debt, or towards financing something that's going to up the value of their property, that's going to pay them back with energy savings, right? And cut down other bills. So you do have to pay a monthly payment for now, but the quicker you pay that off, then you're just in the green. You're getting paid by your windows, by your appliance in your home. It's not a hot tub. It's not it's not a car. It's not something that's a liability. It's not something that's frivolous. When we can show them, hey, this is actually going to put you in the positive, 5-10 years from now, the equity you're sitting on, all that stuff. And that's part of it. That's part of getting to the money. If I have a guy who's got 15 grand he's sitting on, and I could tell him in 10 years, you'll get 15 grand back plus 10, right? That's a better investment than just, spending $15,000 on a paint, to paint the exterior, paint the interior, right? You can spend a lot of money on a home real quick, but not all of them are going to pay you back, right? Like there's a rating There's we got to understand too how appraisers.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just drew a blank, but the appraisers, how they kind of work, how they understand. And I got that from the mortgage industry. And so those all tie into like how we can situate that and find the money. Because sometimes they have the money, but they don't want to let it go until it makes sense. And then they'll let it go.
Some important points you made there, helping them understand where the value is. That's our job as salespeople, is to build enough value with them about the things that we're offering to help them come to terms with separating from their money.
Yeah.
And they could be sitting on a bunch of money, but when somebody comes in, they're inexperienced, they haven't conveyed it in a way that's going to help them understand the value. Even if they got a bunch of money, they're not going to separate from it. So that's the first step, is you got to build enough value that then if you need to get creative, that's already like the foundation's been laid.
Yes.
Everything is prepped and ready. And now the creativity has to come out sometimes to talk about uncovering some credit cards you locked in the safe because you don't know how to use them. You don't know if you should use them. Mm-hmm. You know, my mom told me not to use these and she told me to stay below 30%. And when you can help walk them through all these things and all their credit lines and the total credit utilization and the 30% and all these things that we've heard, but we've only got bits and pieces. Then you start painting the picture for them about how it applies to their situation.
Yeah.
If you got 7 credit cards that all total up to $80,000, then your 30% utilization is a very small percentage of that.
Yeah.
That's $24,000 that you have to use, and you'll still stay below, even if that's maxing out 5 of your credit cards, it's still below your 30% credit utilization. That's going to be watched by the algorithms, which are people are concerned about this stuff. And we got to be able to explain it to them in a way that they're like, oh my, that makes total sense. I never thought of it that way. I thought it was like 30% on each one. And I never wanted to max out that card. So that's some of the stuff that I've heard you talk about that's really impressive, that helps people get into Windows that normally they wouldn't be able to get into Windows.
Yeah. And what's funny is people want, if you live in a house that you enjoy and you like, people want to better that home. They want to better the property. They want it to be worth more. Like there's not a soul on the planet who gets into a home and doesn't care that the home goes up in value. Like if they do, they're a lunatic. They might want to get out of the home quickly, but nobody wants a home that's going to devalue. Like they don't want to do something dumb. And so if you come in there dumb, then they're not going to trust you, right? But if you come in there with the confidence and you lay this out, it's like, it's a no-brainer. Plus, when we show them the window and the product that we offer, it's even more of a no-brainer. So you're just adding up this common sense all day. You're building rapport with them, right? And maybe Jared could talk about this too, because he's fantastic at building rapport. But we were talking about it just a minute ago. When you're at the close and you are trying to find this money, maybe we could talk about like, what is getting creative?
I think to get to the base level, first and foremost, the foundation. So glad you guys brought that up, because not only do we need to build the foundation in terms of value for them to value our product and our service more than what they value their dollar, we also need to build the rapport, have them feel comfortable with us. So it's not really different than any other appointment that you would have. You take them through the same flow. You're building rapport. You're solving their problems. You're building value. And then once you get to the time where it comes time to get creative, you've already laid that foundation. They're comfortable with you. You've built all the value. Now, as a part of like the basic fundamentals of getting creative, now you have to ask with confidence. You bring in those third-party stories. What did I say it was?
Social proofing.
Social proofing.
Yeah, social proofing.
Yeah. So
There you go.
you get that social proof, and then it makes it a lot easier because hey, when you're getting creative with someone, if they feel like you're getting creative and it's like the first time that you've ever done that, they're going to be hesitant to do it.
Yeah.
However, if you can provide some social proof, some third-party stories, hey, this has worked great for our customers in the past. This is what we're going to go ahead and do for you today. Things like that. You're confident with it. You're using social proof. And then for them, they're just like, okay, yeah, he's trying to solve my problems. That sounds like a good idea. Let's do it.
100%.
And I think we're in interesting times nowadays where if you look at anything, most people are misinformed on what they're doing. So finance is a really big thing. They're getting it from the internet. They're not educated. I think as closers, it's actually our job to keep up, because like a lot of the information they have, it could be outdated. It could be just plain wrong. Or, a lot of people are talking about interest rates and save money and what you should do. Their way of thinking is like way from back in the day. And we're just in a completely new day and age. And I think we go in there as professionals, and like Blake said, delivery, you have so much conviction, and they know you're that professional, what we're talking about. There's no reason why they shouldn't move forward with us. Because I've had plenty of times, like I've dealt with people that are bankers, they work in real estate, they work in finance. Anytime we talk about finances, if they can feel that what we're talking about, you're going to have a lot more success than you kind of guessing because you're miseducated or misinformed yourself. So I think that's a big part of the closer's jobs, is just being on top of it and staying educated on rates, especially like on HELOCs for us. That's pretty massive because that's one that we get a lot. So anytime I talk to anybody, I'm like, fuck, like we can do an interest rate that's about 6.9%, where HELOCs are about 7%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's going to be a much better rate for you. And then people are like, oh, really? I had no idea. I'm like, yeah. I just did a banker the other day. She could get a signature loan for 11%. That's from a credit union. Right. So I think the more educated we are and more on top of it we are, we're going to have a lot more success, because people will be like, oh shit, I had no idea. And you're educating them. I was going through the close, and then you just finish closing them.
Yeah,
exactly.
And one thing I was going to bring up too is, we didn't really talk about the easy ones. Like, we're not talking about the easy ones, because most of the time it's just like, how would you like to do it? We do have financing, or would you like to put it on a credit card? A lot of the times they're just like, I think we'd already talked about it, and we're just going to put it on the credit card. Mm. Or, I think we've heard of Green Sky before, and why don't we go with Green Sky?
Right.
We're not talking about those. Like, those are going to be easy. You're done. You like wrap it up quick and go.
Right.
These are the ones that they're not sure what their credit scores are, and they don't want to accumulate any more credit. Maybe they can't get any more credit. Like, we just tried mom and dad and their uncle. I've done this multiple times, and grandma lives next door, and she's like, well, would your mom help you out?
Yeah.
We bring mom over, and she can't do it either. So then we're looking at all these other creative ideas, because they want these things bad. I mean, they called mom to come over from next door to come get finance for them. And she's like, oh yeah, would love to. That just none of them had credit.
Yep.
So now you got to find, where's the bank accounts, the credit cards. Does your rich uncle trust you enough to borrow you some money?
The rich uncle close. I've done, it's not always an uncle, right? But there's a family member that has some money, and I've closed with them over the phone, gotten a credit card with them over the phone. And yeah, it's like, oh, well, you got to build enough rapport with your client that when they call that rich uncle and they feel comfortable, I'm like, hey, can we put him on speaker? Can I meet your rich uncle Bob? Maybe he can get me a swimming pool, and they laugh like, oh yeah, you can talk to my rich uncle Bob. In this case, I think it was his aunt. I can't remember. They ended up signing up or paying with a credit card, and they covered the half. There was a time in a small town in Utah as well where his brother and sister ended up like walking by halfway through the appointment. Joel knows what I'm talking about because he set that one. But we're closing, and it came to the closing, and he was short like maybe $1,800. And I was like, would it be possible for you guys to help out Jeremy? Because he was an older guy and he needed some help. He really needed new windows, and he just came up short. We couldn't get him approved for the right amount. The cash he had on hand was not going to cover the difference. And so I could have walked out right there, but I was able to ask a question. And like, sometimes the confidence enables creativity, right? If you're confident enough, then you'll be creative. Yeah. Then you'll be like,
and forward.
Yes. And forward. And I was like, hey, would you guys be able to spot him? I think it was like $1,700. I'm like, that's all we need right now to seal this deal. And then we agreed and we talked about it. And I'm like, yeah, so Jeremy, you'd be able to come up with the second half upon installation, right? That's not going to be an issue. And they're like, yeah, I just need some time, like maybe 3 or 4 months. I'm like, and this was back when we were about 5 months out. So I was like, well, how about 5? And he's like, that's great. That's even better. And so he was short, but they had just walked by that day. And then like, I ended up inviting them in, and he wanted to see it. Cause you know how it is. If you get a family member that's protective, maybe you're with an elderly person, you're with somebody. And if they have other family close by, get them involved, because they are kind of like second level decision makers.
Yeah. They're the influencer.
Yeah. An influencer is a better term, actually. That's brilliant. Yeah, they're like the Instagram influencer. They're just influencing everything. They're just doing TikTok dances.
Yeah, and if you miss that or if you ignore it,
yeah,
it could be the difference in that deal.
oh, it'll
going
cancel
through or
the
not.
next day. Yeah, right. Because they feel left out. They feel like we're predatory. Because a lot of people think door to door is predatory, but they don't see the numbers. They don't see the offer. They don't see the value that we're building. They don't see the rapport and everything. And like I myself, I have the windows in my own home. I'm one of the few guys that has them installed. I needed Windows so bad I couldn't even turn up our offer that we offer. So it's not like I'm anything special. I just needed Windows, and I sell them. So I'm like, let's do it. But that too has become a huge tool for me in finding other people's money. Because the way I did it was, we financed it, we paid it off quick, and then guess what? We're getting approved for a HELOC here in a couple months or a couple weeks. Excuse me.
Wow.
We just started one. And it's looking good. We're getting an appraisal done and everything. But I've been keeping tabs on appraisals and other things like that. And you can monitor this stuff, and it's all real. And it's nuts that this is just available with this much equity in these windows. And so when I'm telling people like this, you guys can hear my conviction. And these people are now believing that at the table because it is real. I'm living it. I'm cashing in all the rapport I did. We talked about him being a firefighter. We talked about his wife with her quilting business or whatever. We've talked about everything. We've talked about their culture, their religion. We've talked about it all as I was measuring, and we're friends at this point. And so now when we get down to the table, if I need to find the money, I have no problem talking to the rich uncle, or we have no problem digging a little deeper and being like, hey, what else do you guys have? What else? Oh, we got nothing. And sometimes it is kind of embarrassing for them because there are people out there that are just flat broke. And you don't know that until we go through the whole sales process, right? The discovery and everything. And those are the ones I feel the worst about. Like, you just can't do anything for them because there are a limited amount of options in reality, right? People, the rate we move, the speed in which we move, and we do the promotion for the advertising home and everything, that moves quick. And sometimes we don't have the ability to wait for 3 months for somebody to get some lending. So you got to be on Johnny on the spot. And as far as creativeness goes, I think the creativity comes from the rapport. It comes from asking the proper questions and then having the confidence to really get under the skin a little bit and being like, yeah. And then also make people feel really good. So if I have a guy who's got a credit card that's got $20,000 on it, I'm like, are you kidding me, dude? That's awesome. I'm like, not many people know how to use credit cards like you. Do you use that card often? They're like, oh yeah, all the time. I get cash back points. I'm like, dude, you would be blown away how many people don't know what you know. And what does that do? They're like, oh, their chest sticks out a little further. They're like, yeah, I do know about credit cards, bitch.
Yeah, as a matter of
In
fact,
fact, I'm going to use it right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've got guys, I bring that up and, we finagle it. I'm like, but I've had people want to pay me cash and I've talked them into a credit card because I'm like, well, aren't you going on a bear hunting trip soon? Yeah. And he hands me a card to do the financing. Cause you know how you have to cross reference an existing card.
Yeah.
Or I see it, pull it out of his wallet, or he mentioned it or whatever. I did that on the Discovery somewhere and he's shown me this card and I'm like, this is an Alaskan Airlines card. I'm like, aren't you going to Alaska this summer for a bear trip? He's like, yeah. I'm like, have you already bought your airlines? He's like, no. I'm like, how much you got in this card, dude? He's like, well, I'm like, could you cover that? Point back to the, the display or whatever. And he's like, actually, yeah. I'm like, okay, man. Like, we can do the math real quick. We even get on the website sometimes and they're looking at how many points they could get, what's the percentage, do a little math. I'm like, dude, that's like your whole airfare for your Alaskan trip. He's like, well, hot damn, let's do it. And so I talked him out of the financing, which probably isn't the best, profitability move. Cause I know we make, there's like some fees and some points and some kickbacks the company gets from doing lending, but it builds the trust with them. And then he's now even more excited.
Yeah. And I think that's more important.
Yeah, I agree. Totally.
Yeah.
Cause now he's getting something out of it. Now it's directly applicable to like what he wants in the future. So now he's getting Windows plus a free trip. It's like a little rewards program for us. We have a rewards program. It's just secret. It's just hidden. But Visa gives us a rewards program. Alaskan Airlines, Hawaiian Airlines, anything. Like they are all incentivized to do that. and use that lending that's already there on their cards. And sometimes they already got 4 or 5 cards. Why do they need an extra line of credit? Right.
100%.
Yeah. And sometimes we dive into what's easiest. But
So now I'm curious, Andres, because I know that, you're one of our top closers, one of the highest closing ratios ever in the history of the company. How do you do it when you're trying to explain to people, like just breaking it down? We had somebody tell us one time, break it down to the ridiculous, to where it's such a small amount and it's so minuscule that you can help them start to make much more sense of it. How do you go about doing that?
It's funny because most of my deals are actually finance. I know if you look at both sides, you probably have Blake on one side, mostly cash. And then you have me on the other side, mostly finance.
Absolutely.
I always push so hard for the financing because it's just so much easier to sell a payment. We're talking about closing and people. What sounds easier to do, $20,000 or $220 a month? $220, anybody can do it. $20,000, well, you know what I mean? So it's just, nowadays I found like there's a lot of people have good credit, depending where you go, of course, but a lot of people have good credit. So anytime, I'm going through it, I always, when I word it, I'm like, I can do a payment as low as, let's say $220 a month. I go over the terms, 6.9%, 120 months. And just really like when I'm talking about it, I'm super excited. And I've had people telling me straight up, you're like, it sounds like it's a great deal just by the way you're saying it. I'm like, because it is. It's a fantastic deal, right? And then we can do it. It's just that conviction. It gets people just a lot more. They have a lot more trust and they believe you. And like, I'm a professional. I know what I'm saying. Yes. And then if they give me any pushback or they're like, oh, well, it's too much or this or that, I'm like, okay. So we'll look at it this way. It's $220. That's only $60 a week, guys. $60 a week nowadays, that's not even half a tank of gas. I pay $140 for my truck and I'm spending one tank gas a week, right? So wouldn't that be worth it? $60 a week. So we can finally get this done. You guys don't have to worry about it again. And like they think about it, like, oh, well, you know what? Yes, because it's just breaking it down. And you can even go one step further. That's $10 a day. That's less than $10 a day.
Yeah.
Nowadays you can go every day. I know I can go buy a bottle of water and I'm spending $4 a day just in one bottle of water. That's 2 bottles of water. And then you get his windows done. It's so, why wouldn't you do it? It does not make sense for you not to do this. I don't say this, but when I'm talking to them, that's what they're getting every single time. Because if they don't do it, they're like,
but that's the feeling that they're getting from you. It's like, this makes 0 sense for you guys to pass this up. When you break it down to those smaller numbers, it's less than $10 a day.
And usually what I'll do is I'll add in, I'll account for the energy savings as well. So average savings. So your average energy cost $200 a month, average savings 40%. Okay, we're going to take $80 off the top of it right now.
Yeah, you can even get it more ridiculous.
So now we just went from 220 to 80 off of that, whatever that is, 140. If the math, the math holds up. So I'm mathing. So now it's 140. So now we break that down to the ridiculous. And one thing that I've used before. Well, they're like, oh, well, I'm just not sure I can swing the payment. Okay, guys, I'll break down the fact that it's only a half payment until the job's complete. And then I'll ask them, and because I'll take note of things, okay? Vehicles, trailers, things like this. What other things do you guys have financed that you're looking to pay off soon? I had one guy, he's like, well, I'm going to pay off my boat in 2 months. I was like, okay, so you look at the timeline of this, you're only paying a half payment until the job's complete. Once the job's complete, 3 months from now, you're going to have that boat payment done. So you can take the $80 you're paying for your boat payment. That's more than this $70 payment you got for these windows. You're good to go. He's like, that makes sense. Let's do it. So we closed it right there.
That's a big one. And this is completely like side note, but something I've been doing the last couple of months, I've been trying to close, like I still do it, but I'm like, can I close this customer, 1, without showing the window, and 2, without leaning into the energy savings? And I've done all these virtual appointments and then a whole bunch of stuff. And sometimes people don't even want to see the window. Just pure salesmanship. I think for a lot of closers that are seeing this, that's like a good little thing to do. Like it's going to make you so much sharper. Yeah. Because like it's tools you have in your tool belt that you can pull out on any time. Oh, well, you have energy savings, you have this window, you have this and that. But if you can close them without even saying any of that, it just shows how much better of a closer you are. Like, for example, when I started, I would do everything possible because I always thought, well, the windows what really sells. But now that I've sold a whole bunch of deals that I don't even show the windows, or sometimes we don't even have solar, or efficiency is really like they don't really care because they're paying maybe $100 a month. I found like my web closing it's a lot more smoother, and I know if I need to, I can go without it. That was just a little side note I wanted to bring out.
Nice.
You know what is even cooler than any of the stuff that we're talking about is Andres not very long ago was painting strips on roads. And now listen to this guy.
Yeah.
He is an effing professional. And he's got so many reps in. He's so creative in the way that he comes up with these ideas and keeps evolving and reflecting back on the things that work. I love hearing it, brother.
And
Proud of you, man.
One thing because I checked Andres off to be a director. And one thing I'll always remember, and I look for in other people when I'm checking them off, is when he presented price and it wasn't a no straight away, he gets this look on his face like, I got to figure this out. Like you just see it. You just see it. Like
you see him dig in.
Oh, dig in. The wheel starts spinning and he starts figuring out how to make it happen. And I think that's so important. Like the reason why we're getting creative is because we care a lot and we're trying to get this thing closed and we're trying to figure out, we're super intentional. I'm there to close a deal. I'm not there to hit a barrier and some objections and walk out without helping these people without helping myself. Like I'm there to help them. I'm there to create a commission for myself towards my goals and everything. It's a waste of time if I'm not giving it everything I got every time.
100%.
So
Ultra intentional,
man. Like we always talk about as a company, right? Like I'll be straight honest with anybody watching this. JKR has changed my life like 100 times over. The exponential growth that you can get here is insane, right? And there's other companies out there like that. They're kind of few and far between. So just keep your nose to the ground or just come over here with us. If you're watching this, just come over. But basically the concept of getting 1% better every day. Great. That's awesome. You can do it. You can do a lot, but if you're by yourself, that's still only 1% every day. Now imagine you got 5 friends. Like, you guys know the comedian Joey Diaz? Yeah. He's like, you give me 4 motherfuckers, you could take over a country, right? Yeah. If you got 4 or 5 guys, right, that are on the same path as you, that are also getting 1% better every day, and you guys meet every morning and you share energy, you share knowledge transfer, right? Like we're learning from Andreas, like he's on that end of the spectrum with the finance. I just learned something from him. Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to probably balance out a little bit more because you know how to find money. Same with J-Rod. You know how to find money. That boat payment you brought up, that's finding money. You're finding money 6 months into the future with this guy. You're uncovering stuff. That's the creativity we're talking about. Hey, what else do you got? What do you got going on? I saw that RV out front, right? And then also you can tell people, dude, you got an RV, you got a side-by-side, you got all this stuff. You make this much a month. You've already told me. Like, and they're hesitant to do like a payment. You're like, and if you break it down to that ridiculous, then they're like, okay, that's smaller. But then you can hit them with that like, hey, I know that you're capable of earning this much money. Are you doubting yourself? Like you're a badass guy. Look at what you got. You got that side by side. That's all paid off, huh? You told me. Yeah, it's paid off. You got all this stuff. So like, what's the difference between you paying off a side by side and the windows? I'm like, well, you can't drive a side by side, or you can't drive our windows up a sand dune, unfortunately. You know, I wish you could. And like they're blown away. They're like, yeah, I am that guy. But when you're with a group of people, you don't ever forget that you are that guy. That you're 1% better every day. And if you're with 5 dudes, you're getting 5% better every day. If you're listening to all your friends,
with all the downloads.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You're just
like the amount of wisdom that was just shared here between everybody's experiences and all their years.
Absolutely.
With this company have added to every one of us.
Exactly.
In a very short period of time.
I'm actually regretting not having some notes on me right now. I this is recorded, so I'll go back. But I'm going to talk about Andres then, because I didn't know you were that good at financing.
Oh, he's the man.
Yeah.
So guys, I want to take
I finance half of the Green Skies loans, bro.
Yeah.
I want to talk about getting a little bit more with some scenarios that we closed, that just like stories for these people, some examples. So one thing that I used one time, it was a pretty clever close that I really liked. They were like, okay, well, we really want to do it, but I think we're going to get the home equity loan first, then we'll do it. And I'm like, okay, guys, Let me break down the way the equity works with these windows, because we'd already gone over it, but it wasn't like something that we really spent a lot of time in and unpacked.
Went over their head a little bit.
Exactly. Went over their head a little bit. So it was like, okay, national average for these windows, 72% return on investment. We're giving you guys a 52% discount. So you're going to be anywhere from 20 to 25% return on investment once these windows are installed. Basically, these things are worth more installed than what you paid for them. Okay. So, and what we've had people do all the time, again, we're doing those third-party stories, the social proof. What we've had people do all the time, it's really worked out for them, is we go ahead, you guys just take our financing today. We get this project done. Again, there's no payoff penalties. You can pay this thing off whenever you want. So what we're going to do, we're going to have you guys do our financing so you guys can take advantage of the discount, all of that, the opportunity. Once these windows are installed, then get your home equity line of credit, get your appraisal, because the equity from these windows will then be added. Then once you get that check from your HELOC, then just pay off this loan. No payoff penalties, no harm, no foul. You guys are good to go. They're like, we can really do that? Yeah. We have people do that all the time. Sweet. $32,000 deal. That was your deal I closed for you, Andres.
Oh, no shit.
Yep.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah. So I utilized the fact that they wanted to use the home equity line of credit. They still could do that, but I figured out how to leverage our financing and our opportunity and the equity added in a way that they could still utilize that. It was just, they were able to get the windows that day, or not that day, but get the deal done that day. And then they're worrying about the HELOC later.
Straight up, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Straight up.
That's great. And you that was one of the first closes you taught me, actually. Once you understand the equity, you're like, oh yeah, no brainer. And so if you polish a way to do that, like that is a close that I use often. I'd probably say majority, over 50% of our deals get closed that way, because people want a HELOC right now. Like, because buying a house or moving or upgrading to a home is not really feasible, because you're going to downgrade because the way the house is jumped up. It's like, yeah, I could sell my house, but where am I going to go? What am I going to buy with my buying power? So people want to stay where they're at. They want to do home improvements. They want to put the hot tub in. They want to put the pool in. They want new windows. And so if you can show them, hey, if instead of doing your kitchen first, you do these windows first, that equity, once you get that home equity line of credit, you're golden. It's just like solid. And the economy has actually made that close way more viable, I think. But one of my favorite closes too is using pain points to find money, to find more money. Andreas knows this. You remember in Las Vegas when you were translating for me, and we turned that one deal from it was like an 18 window deal into a 26. So you got a double when you're starting. You know, we were in Las Vegas. Everyone was getting their teeth kicked in, except Andreas was thriving. A couple of our guys were thriving. But in that close, I was kind of, they spoke some English, but it was really good having Andreas there. So you were there translating. And I said, they walked it back down, and you're just, of course, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. That's a great idea. And then you play devil's advocate. And I'm like, hey, so like, that's affordable. You guys can do that. And I was like, what about this 26 though? I mean, hypothetically, could you guys do this? Like, I think it was like $25,000 deal. I was like, is that doable? They're like, yeah, but like, we want to do that. I'm like, okay, cool. And I'm like, you know what, guys? I'm like, how do you guys feel about hearing those dump trucks go by your bedroom window every day? And they're like, I'm like, maybe we could add those back on. Cause you already know, like, yeah, it would be tough, but you could do this $24,000 deal. Like, yeah, that'd be tough. But I'm like, what if I bring up the pain again? I'm like, you remember those dump trucks that are just driving by your window every day? You know, just Bob the Builder out there every fucking morning. Like, what are you going to do about that? And they're like, maybe it would be good if we add. But that was in Spanish. They were like, lo siento, burrito, taco. And I'm like, I'm looking at Andreas. And Andreas was like,
I think you're missing a part, bro.
Oh,
you're missing a part of the story. It was like on cue as you were saying that. Here comes this big ass truck driving by their by their room.
I forgot about that.
And that's when you were like, okay, that's gonna be a deal.
Yeah, it was like it was on a little bit of a hill too, so they needed to use like an engine brake, you know. So
yeah.
So it was like on awesome, cue. Bro. That's right. It happened while we were measuring the window, and then it happened at the close. And so I brought the paint up again, and they were like, actually, yeah. So then they added. And then they're like, but then they did the rest of it themselves. They're like, but then the bathroom and then, but then the office is so bad in the summer. Oh my gosh. And this was happening in Spanish, but I've seen it enough in English to know what was happening. Because then the wife's like, well, actually, she just took the wheel. And the husband's like, yeah. So then they ended up closing. So I brought up the pain point again to remind them like, hey, we've already done some discovery. And I was like, bluntly like, hey, you guys could afford that though, right? Like, yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Let's walk you down. But like, just make sure you guys can afford that right there. They're like, yeah, of course we can, but it's tight. But then the pain was more. The pain was worse. So now they went up to that price point again, no problem. So that's been one of my favorite memories.
I have a peculiar story how she like closed. It was in Logandale. I was talking to a super nice couple, but then the husband was unemployed, so he didn't have a job. So we're talking the whole time, and I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, how the hell are they going to do this? Like I was a junior director. I'm like, they don't have a job. But I just went straight to it. I did the whole thing. I get down to the end. I'm showing them financing, and they're like, yeah, we just don't have a job. And that was the thing. It was like, no, we don't have a job. We don't have a job. So I just looked at them, and I'm like, well, how confident are you can get another job? So, oh, well, pretty easy. I'm like, okay. So actually what it was that he was trying to transition to another job. But for the meantime, he was just not working. So I'm like, so even if you don't get that, can you get a different job? He's like, yes. How soon? He's like, at the latest, it's going to be a month. Okay. So after you get that job, is it affordable? Yes. Okay. So what's stopping you from moving forward today? And they just fucking looked at themselves and they're like, you know what? Let's just fucking do it. Yeah. So we're just fucking like, that's our job as closers. Like, where's the money? Like Blake said, like, you have to go into the future, get that fucking money, bring it back, collect it, and then they can pay later on.
Go into the future.
So for me, I mean, that's one of my favorite stories. I say it all the time, and they're super stoked. I talked to him again after install. This dude, he has this job he was trying to get anyway, so everything worked out fantastic for them.
Wow.
I was surprised how they qualified without a job, but it worked out.
You know what though? What's cool is you're out there impacting people's lives too, because now you put some pressure on him. And probably got some little extra pressure from his wife too. Like, listen, now we made some commitments. We may have been able to sneak by a little bit longer on savings, but now we got this looming payment, and we can't get around the need for you to go back out there and find that job and make it happen. And what do you know? He went out there and got the job that he had dreamed about, that he was making the transition for. And Andres out there changing people's lives.
Yep. Amen to that.
That's awesome, bro.
And dude, because I have these windows, the product, I've never been more sold on a product than the windows we offer at JKR. Because I have them in my own home. I wanted to vet the company out. A lot of people don't know this. And I tell clients this all the time. I'm like, hey, knock on wood. Like, JKR has been awesome to work for. I tell them a little bit about our culture. I'm like, we're a people development company first. We just happen to sell windows. And we also just happen to be the best damn installers, like in the Rocky Mountains. And soon to be the world, like world domination, coming at you, pinky in the brain.
The universe.
Right. So I believe in this product more than anything I've ever been privy to sell, right? Or any other product I've stood behind. And I get to experience it every day. I walk into my living room, the temperature's great. I walk outside, it's freaking triple digit heat, hits me in the face like I just got slapped in the face. I'm like, oh, go right back inside. I'm like, yeah, my house is nice. It's comfortable. I opened up the shower. I use all the features of the windows. It helps with the shower steam. Like, I live it every day. And it's just amazing to see that. I don't think there's been a week I've gone by in my home where I've had the windows and I haven't thought about, man, these windows are great. And so when we talk about giving people, adding to their life, right? A lot of people have, and you told me this too, when I first started out, a lot of people have square footage in their home that they cannot enjoy ever. Maybe for an hour in the evening or in the morning. But as soon as that St. George heat hits it, or that Arizona, Tucson, Arizona heat hits, or that Colorado freezing cold, they're not in that room. Curtains are drawn, saran wraps on the window. Everything else in their home is immaculate, nice, wonderful. And then we come in and change it. Solar doesn't do that. Like, nothing does that. Even if you spray your attic with all that stuff, you still got windows that need repair. Windows are the most impactful thing to do for comfort in your home. And so when you talk about changing people's lives, right? Yeah, we're putting a commitment on them, They're feeling, he's getting a job quicker than he normally would. They're feeling that pressure, but also it's a thing they're getting for their home that's going to directly impact them every single day. Every day. It's insane. It's awesome to see.
Love that. All right, boys. We gave everybody plenty of tools to go out there and use. So I expect everybody watching this to level up their closing abilities. Take your notes, practice, drill, rehearse. There's only one way you're going to become a professional salesperson, and that's by being intentional about the work that you put into becoming a professional salesperson. It's not going to happen by osmosis or just hanging around successful salespeople. You got to put the work in. So message of the day, go find the money, for goodness sakes. It's there. If you made it to their kitchen table, you have got to get creative. Ask for the money is the first step. If you're not asking, it's going to be no every single time. And then get creative. There's all kinds of different ways. We've only talked about a handful of them. There's many, many more, many different industries. Go out there and make some more money. And until next time, just real quick, later on.
See you guys.
Peace.